How does relocation affect marriages, especially African marriages in Canada, anywhere abroad?
I tell people that even the best of marriages suffer relocation pressure. Even if you have everything aligned, you guys are 100% aligned, let's say you've been married 5, 6, 7 years before you come here. The fact that you're coming to start in a new country, especially if you're a first generation immigrant, it's a lot.
A man who sees himself in the typical African scene, we don't do certain things, or certain things are done, and we expect things to be done in a particular way. How does Canada humble that person?
Canada will humble everybody. Let's even start from there. Oh, God.
The next thing will be, how does one, or how can one cope with the external influence of abroad life? It has a potential to strain one's marriage.
Some marriages from back home are not built for abroad. However, I keep telling people I'm the queen of unlearning, learning, and relearning.
When you come to a new community, if it's a church you go to, study the people you become friends with. Make sure you use left eye. Be looking at who your spouse is becoming friends with. Believe me, there are dangerous people who give dangerous advice. There's friendship that comes with competition, comparison. Look at Emeka's wife. He just came last week. He bought her a Range Rover. You don't know what Emeka does for job. Now, this society is designed in such a way that 2 can chase 10,000, whereas 1 will chase 1,000. That's how it's designed. So that if you formed friendship with your spouse, together you can chase 10,000.
One of the shockers I got in my life coming to Canada is seeing adults being pressured. You are married to somebody, but you can't be friends with this person. You rather have friends and best friends outside that you are even more vulnerable with than your spouse. I don't understand how 2 people be in a marriage and be having sex with each other and they can't communicate. They can't plan finances. But you're all seeing each other's pride. What else is higher than this?
So how does relocation affect marriages, especially African marriages in Canada, anywhere abroad?
Obviously, I'm Omoladada. So please, they're all my views. I'm not responsible for how people interpret them, but they're just my views, okay? And they're not absolute, all right? I'm just talking from experience. Okay, back to how marriages, how relocation affects marriages. I just want to start with, like I said last time, I think if you have certain principles, it doesn't matter where you live. Like, there are certain principles that are universal, okay? So there are certain things that if you've done with your marriage, I think they should be able to, your marriage should be able to weather any storm, no matter where it is. Now, there's relocation pressure. That's a totally different game. I'm talking about even the principles of marriage. And I will just go back to even before you get married. So myself and my husband were married counselors back home. We're not practicing now. But even from our time as married counselors, back in Nigeria, there are a lot of things we saw. And honestly, I always ask, like, when people are dating or courting, what are you even talking about? Most times what we see people do during courtship is, oh, I love you, you love me, talk your own. But then you see most people don't even talk about anything. It's just, I'm going to take you here, I'll buy this for you, I don't buy that for you, all sort of things people are doing. So many times the foundation is even a bit shaky, right? Schedule. And then you now start a marriage, so many things are not aligned. You now take that marriage to come abroad. I tell people that even the best of marriages suffer relocation pressure. Like, the best of marriages suffer relocation pressure, because even if you have everything aligned, you guys are 100% aligned, let's say you've been married 5, 6, 7 years before you come here. The fact that you're coming to start in a new country, especially if you're a first generation immigrant, it's a lot, right? So even if you had a good marriage, you will still face it here. But what I've seen is most marriages from Nigeria, well, let me not say most, please. I'll take that word back. A lot of marriages from Nigeria, honestly, are, I call it doing marriage the Nigerian way. I doing marriage the Nigerian way, and I'll explain it to you. You see many people who, they have this absolute mindset. Is this way or that way? As a man, the only thing I know how to do is to provide money. as a woman, even if I'm working on any millions, I'm not going to bring 1 naira into my family. My husband must do everything. You know, the husband does not even know how to do certain things. He can't wash plates. You can't change a tire. You can't drive. You can't change a bulb. And then you come to this country where, at least to an extent, everybody does everything. And you're like, what the heck? What's happening? What's happening, right? And we've seen many marriages crumble from there. Coming to Canada, honestly, there's a lot of pressure, Shegun. By the time we came to Canada was the first time we had been out of work in our whole careers. So we had never experienced joblessness till we moved. And you will not know how you go through things until it happens, right? Experience is the best teacher. And I know, like, that pressure for both of us, like, can you imagine two people who had worked all their career, like, after school, and this is the first time you're not working? It brought a lot of pressure, but I look back and I'm glad we're able to, like, go through it. We quickly found our footing. I keep telling people that a lot of marriages will have gone through what we went through and won't be standing today. They won't be here, because it was a lot. It was a lot. For example, at a point, I had to do graveyard shifts because my husband was finding time, had time to get work. He comes from a tech background, and I didn't want to work in the bank. My whole career was in the bank back home, so I had to do like security guard jobs, things like that, working midnight shifts, and nobody. Yes, there were days we were tired, frustrated. Oh my God, this is not what we wanted, but we managed through it. When I go, I remember he would always be sat by the door. I'd be like, "Oh, I have to go." He'll be there with my son, and he'll be awake all night, like applying for jobs, all of that. Long story short, my job where I'm thriving now, I've been here for almost 5 years. It was one of those nights I came back and he was like, "Hey, I found your job on LinkedIn," right? And I always wonder if maybe I was angry with him those days. I wasn't talking with him. What would have happened, right? But I'm just saying that there's pressure. Now, coming abroad, there are many things, Shegun, that a typical marriage, and this is, again, don't forget I told, like, my marriage now is almost the same thing like what we did in Nigeria, like maybe 5%. I don't even think there's a difference. It's the same way we've been. You understand? The only difference is, what's the difference? Honestly, it's almost the same thing, in my opinion. But there are many marriages in Nigeria, Shegun. It's totally different from what you find here. It's totally different. And when they come here, a man will be shocked. For example, you're saying I should wash plates. Like, how? Do you know who I was in Nigeria? I had 10 aides or 10 domestic staff. I was a general manager in whatever company, or I was like a senior director. It doesn't matter here, right? You have to do certain things. So when they come to face that kind of pressure, it just discombobulates the whole thing. The wife is not used to certain things, you have to shovel snow here, take turns. Are you going to say the man should really want to shovel snow? Relocation pressure is a lot, and many Nigerian marriages are not built, to last here if they don't work on certain things. And this is why I'll come back and close with, you must have principles, you must have values. I feel values, principles are universal. And even if you're a Kutuwenji and you have those values, if you go to New York, it will sustain you. If you go to Canada, it will sustain you, right? Which a lot of marriages from Nigeria, I think, lack. A lot. I'm not saying most, I'm saying a lot of marriages lack. And we've seen that, really crumble the pie when they come here.
Thanks, Ola, for that. So that question was an open-ended question, and there's still many subsets of that question. So that question was just to get more wet. There's still subsets of that question that we'll be talking about from time to time. And just a follow-up to that, and I would like to ask Emeka this, is what did you have to, or what are the things what was the unlearning and relearning situation about marriage that Canada showed you? What did you have to unlearn, relearn, or learn about marriage that Canada showed when you arrived or when you got married?
So I was married in Nigeria. I came by myself. I lived here for about 4 years before my wife joined me. So I have a very unique circumstance, but I can speak to your question based on, my experience interacting with people and when she finally joined and stuff like marriage is the one thing, and this cuts across, all climates abroad, Africa, Nigeria, Canada. It is the one relationship that can either improve your life or destroy your life, depending on how you navigate it. Unfortunately, it's the one relationship we pay the least attention to. You will find that in Nigeria, these things will not really matter because you can divorce a woman in Nigeria and chase her out of the house and nothing happens. She just takes her things and leaves. And that's it. When you move, first of all, let me not be negative. There's a lot of marriages that are thriving. They will have their challenges, but moving across the pond to Canada will, because now there's access to a whole lot of things, they thrive. But you will find that these were marriages that were already thriving, marriages that have had work put into making it work. Once you make that move from Nigeria to wherever it is, it's a change. And in the office, we do change management. The same thing should apply to marriages. You have to be intentional in accepting that this change from A to B is something you need to sit down and analyze, because there will be pressures, there will be stresses, there will be good things, there will be bad things. Usually there's plenty of good, but it is those small bad things that rear themselves up and start to damage the good that you have. Before you know it, you look back and you're divorced. And in Canada, divorce is something that can wreck your life, because depending on who has more, you are having to give up 50% of what you. It's not even about learning or unlearning or relearning. It's just you paying attention to certain things. Understand that change has happened. There are things that will remain the same. Great. Find those things and keep doing them. There are things that definitely have to change. You were asking about gender roles. Yes, it will have to change. You could land in Canada and your wife, who was a housewife in Nigeria, just goes online, applies to something, and that's exactly who the company is looking for. Someone who has never worked before. And this is a role that pays her $50 an hour. Omo, she's balling right off the bat. If it is somebody who you've been maltreating in Nigeria, and someone who, deep down is just like you, but without the means to maltreat you, your own don't be. She will make that money, and because you don't have a job, she will retaliate. And that's fine. I'm not here to say whether it's good or it's bad. I'm just saying that when you do things, you have to think about the future. Now, if you married a good person, they could sit you down and say, I have two choices: give you back what you gave to me when we lived in Nigeria, or show you how someone should be treated, whether they have something or not. If you meet this kind of person, great for you. And I tell people at times, I say, for us Africans and the culture we have with marriage, where the woman has to, be subservient and submissive and things like that. If you come to Canada, where your wife probably earns about the same as you or even more than you, whatever the case is, she's making some kind of money, but she still comes home, cooks for you, respects you like you live in Nigeria. Please, respect that woman, value that woman. We live in a system that empowers women to be very assertive, be who they want to be, whatever that is. And your wife can wake up and say, I don't want to be married to you anymore. If you earn more than her, that's it. The marriage breaks up. You, the man, will leave the house, regardless of whether you bought it or not, because the children will have to stay in the house. So there's various dynamics that play out that as a discerning human being, I would want to consider everyone who wakes up and decides to move to a better opportunity as a wise person. Don't take things for granted. Oh, this is my wife. I can treat her the way I want it. Oh, this is my husband. I can treat him the way I want it. There's options. There's now more opportunities. This your husband that you considered useless and this and that could have a rich woman neighbor that is like, wow, look at the way she treats this man. I will woo him and take him away so that if I have a man at home, my life will be better. He doesn't even need to work. This one that he goes to work every day. There's women like that in Canada. They have money, they have everything. They just need a man. And then you are mistreating your man. There's also men who will look at you and be like, wow, this is your wife that you're treating like this. You will need to unlearn the bad based on where you are. You need to learn the culture of where you are, and you need to relearn the good things that you have from where you came from that can function where you now are. So those are the points I have to bring out.
Well, amazing. Thank you so much, Emeka. And of course, now I'm getting warmed up, and and there's so many, as you're talking, and there's so many questions just flushing through my mind, and I was writing and rewriting, and because of limited time, I can only bring out the ones I can bring out. And this question now, so I'll be doing ping pong. So as the questions bounce from you, I will give it to Lola. As Lola's questions bounce, depending on how the thing goes. Now, let us do a role play, and this is for Lola. And let's look at me. I'm a typical traditional Nigerian man with the natural or the traditional ego of being a man or a husband to a wife. And then I decide to come to Canada with my wife. How can my ego be bruised? What kind of gender roles can cause me to have my ego bruised for a traditional or a typical traditional Nigerian or African?
Okay. Thanks, Emeka, for your takes. And okay, Shego. So a typical traditional man, can you give me more context? Like this, what does this guy do? He just provides for the family. What's the context?
A man who believes that I'm supposed to cater in the breadwinner of the family. A man who believes that there's specific or certain kinds of roles that a man should do and the woman should do. And a man who sees himself in the typical African thing. We don't do certain things, or certain things are done, and we expect things to be done in a particular way. How does Canada humble that person?
So again, thanks. I think I said it the last time. Canada will humble everybody. Let's even start from there. Oh God.
Ego.
You people watching this thing, you guys don't know. That's the laughter. Hey, the laughter is the laughter that says more than the laughter.
Ego.
See?
Oh, dear Lord.
Okay. Canada humbles everybody. Even if you were the humblest of people back home, Canada humbles you. I tell people, Canada, I think, humbles you and sees if you can pick yourself together, pick yourself up. If you can't pick yourself up, that's it. You just go downhill. But if it humbles you and you can get yourself together, pick yourself up, you thrive here, right? And now this is level playing ground. So I'm saying, first of all, it humbles everybody. Even you, if you come here, you humbled me. I'm sure it humbled Emeka. Like even, where I started with telling you, for example, my marriage, it's not too different from here. But even at that, it's still humbled. Like there were things that came up here that humbled us. as a couple again, because these are the first experiences we're going through, right? It's not by money. If you think you have money, Canada will humble you. So don't think it's by money. Some of us came here with money to start life. Some didn't come with anything. Some came with little money. So it's not by money. Okay. But back to your question. For a traditional Nigerian man who comes to Canada with his family, how it will affect his ego. If you're a typical traditional man who just thinks like, all I have to do is just give money, slam money at everything. I'm not present. I'm not involved in my household. All I do is give you money for housekeep and food. Some marriages from back home are not built for abroad. However, I keep telling people I'm the queen of unlearning, learning, and relearning. I preach it at every goal. As we go through life, there are many things we're going to unlearn. I'm still unlearning some things myself. I'm constantly learning. And there's some things you have to relearn, right? If you are willing to unlearn certain behaviors before you come here, but when you come here, you will thrive. But if you refuse to unlearn certain behaviors or learn certain behaviors, it's going to be tough for you. Okay? For example, you can't just come here where everybody has to leave. Okay, let me even say that person was a businessman. He didn't have to leave for a career or like 8 o'clock in the morning, you have to be at work or leave the house 6:30 or 5:30. Maybe the wife was also a businesswoman, not a career person. So she's not even used to this life of waking up early. Before the two of them wake up, their kids are already baited by domestic staff. Lunch is packed, all they say is good morning to the kids. School bus comes to take the kids. You not come here where if two of you are working daytime jobs, you have to wake up early. There's no domestic staff. You have to get the kids ready. You have to prepare yourself. You have to drive to school. Excuse me, or they go to the bus. You have to commute to work. If you're working remotely, then lucky for you. Or lucky you. Oh man, I need to use my words properly. Lucky you. But if not, you have to drive to work, commute to work. Now, your husband commutes to work, you commute to work. Don't forget these people who are maybe business owners in Nigeria, so they're not even used to structure. It's going to be a lot, Shegun. It's going to be a lot. Like your ego will be bruised, not bruised. I think your ego will be stripped from you. And if that's all you hold on to for self, evaluation, then you can see how empty you're going to be. Okay, let me give you an example, Shegun. In Nigeria, people will leave work and then maybe go sit at a bar till 10:30. Here, you're coming straight home. So if there's no peace in your house, back home in Nigeria, there's no peace. Many Nigerian marriages function. Even if there's no peace, husband will day outside. He'll be outside till maybe 10:30. Wife, nothing. So everybody's distracted, is what I'm trying to say. You come here, you will come back to this house now. Let's assume you close work at 5. Where are you going to sit down to 10:30? Where are you going to go? You have to come back home. So if you are used to keeping malice, not organizing things, you must learn to resolve issues here. And if you don't resolve them, marriage is scattered. So you must troubleshoot, be able to do certain things. You know what I mean? So honestly, Shegun, it will break your ego. Gender roles, if you don't know how to do things back home, you can't sweep. You would do it here. You will. You have no choice.
It does. I mean, anyone listening to that will have a rethink of how to reprogram their minds and reprogram their expectation so that, like we say, it's not cut short. Now, with all this, what I call it doom and gloom stories about challenges and the issues with marriages, especially when you change a zip code, you change geography, you change location. The next thing will be how can one cope with the external influence of abroad life that has had an effect or strain, that has a potential to strain one's marriage. So what coping mechanisms based on your own experience can you prefer? Can you give to someone else to say, well, these are the shocks, or these are the shock absorbers, help you navigate these shocks? Emeka, please. And I'll come back to Lola the same question.
Yeah, I really like that question because, you know, it seems when we are asked questions, we don't want to give people the impression that we are scaring them. No, we're not. We're trying to ground you in the sense that we're telling you the realities. These realities may not be for you, but it's definitely someone else's. And the whole point of these conversations is so that you learn. Now, the shock absorbers, first and foremost, Lola spoke a bit about this in the last conversation. First and foremost, know who you are. You get me? Understand who you are as a human being and be at peace with that. By this, I mean you accept that you are hot-tempered and that is something you need to tackle. You are not saying, I am hot-tempered towards my wife and I need to stop it. You're saying, I am hot-tempered and that is not a good way to respond to anything. It is you. You're not saying this relative to anything. You're saying this because you accept that this trait that you have is not okay. You need to work on it. That's what I mean when I say accept who you are. Number two, understand your spouse. Take time to understand your spouse. By the time you finish these two things, something would have happened. You would establish friendship. By the time you accept who you are and you understand the person you are married to, friendship has developed. When you come to a new community, if it's a church you go to, study the people you become friends with. Please, while you're studying the people you become friends with, make sure you use left eye. Be looking at who your spouse is becoming friends with. Believe me, there are dangerous people who give dangerous advice. They will see you, how happy you are. They know they are not happy in their homes and they want companionship in their misery. Do not submit yourself to something like that. Look for people who are genuinely happy and who also wish you genuine happiness. Because if I say this, ask Lola and see if it is true. Sometimes here, you don't even need friends. And I'm not saying friendship is bad. It's just that the danger of making the wrong ones, sometimes it's better to just be on your own, because there's friendship that comes with competition, comparison. Look at Emeka's wife. He just came last week. He bought her a Range Rover. You don't know what Emeka does for job. Look at Onyinye's husband, the way he dresses. Look at the suit he's wearing. You look at you. Every time you comparison is the basis of unhappiness. So don't compare yourself with anybody. Just come here, run your race. Now, this society is designed in such a way that two can chase 10,000, whereas one will chase 1,000. That's how it's designed. So that if you formed friendship with your spouse, together you can chase 10,000. Combined effort. Don't go and be doing things on your own. No, you have a helper. If it's your husband, if it's the wife, combine your resources. For when you go to get a house, if I earn $100,000 a year, I could qualify for a house of 200K. If you add your spouse's income, which is another 100,000, you find that you may qualify for a house of 500,000. It balloons the possibilities if you combine your resources. But if you're doing it by yourself, well, You will get far, but not as far as you will if you're working together. So communication is the bedrock of a successful relationship. Once you have all these that I've listed, they are solid coping mechanisms. Believe in yourself, understand your spouse, know who you are, do your finance planning, have time for your family, get into a job that aligns with your family value, communicate. If you do all of these things, and the ones you can find by yourself, this is one my limited brain can come up with. If you do all of these things, I think that you will have a healthy relationship and your marriage will prosper. Yeah.
Because you sound like a marriage counselor.
I'm not I'm just a troublemaker.
With those points. What was coming to my head was just, I was just looking at it and thinking to myself that it seems as though Nigeria, or life in Nigeria, or marriage in Nigeria allows, there's so many, I don't know, the Nigerian system, the Nigerian culture, the Nigerian environment allows for many lapses in marriage.
We take too many things for granted.
But those marriages will still find a way just to, whether it's real, it just finds a way to stand. But when you move to Canada, those things, those buffers, those things that protect, or like in quotes,
They disappear.
Still be something is eliminated. And then everything just total chaos if you don't follow the normal steps or the rules. Because what you have said is a typical thing they will tell you in marriage counseling, regardless of whether you are in a point A or point B, you know. And it's very important as people listen that these are these are real situations, and Canada just removes all those things that would hold marriages in Nigeria. So just based with that question now, Lola, do you have anything to add or contribute to that particular question about shock absorbers and how you're able to to manage it and not let these things that are in Canada or abroad first effect on the marriage?
Right. Emeka has mentioned a couple of things here. For example, like communication, things like that. I remember, I think last week or so, I made a video on my Instagram page where I was talking about competition. And in that video, I was even saying you shouldn't be competing with your spouse, for example. There are many things I don't understand, and I'm not sure I understand them. The kind of people keep around themselves. And, I talked about peer pressure last time. One of the shockers I got in my life coming to Canada is seeing adults being peer pressured. Oh my God.
Wow.
Now, I know sometimes people say,
no, it happens.
Yeah.
It happens a lot. Wow.
Yeah. People always say, Lola, you're very sharp, you're smart, you're always on point, but you can be quite naive. I agree. And sometimes I think back later and I'm like, oh my God, one of the things I was quite naive about, and maybe because I didn't go through it, and I just thought maybe it's younger people who go through it, is seeing adults being peer pressured. I'm still trying to, I still think about it from time to time when I think about some situations, right? But it's one of the shockers. Honestly, I've seen in my adult life here. And I've been here for about 5 years now, right? I will say there are many things you need to do to, proof your marriage. There are many things you need to do to proof your marriage. And it doesn't start from year 13 of the marriage. It starts from pre-marriage and then year 1 of the marriage. Well, let's even say you're here now. You're saying, okay, how do we move forward? Respect for each other is very important. Respect for each other is very important. People don't respect themselves. Like Emeka said, you will have a friend, and this is another thing I don't understand. You are married to somebody, but you can't be friends with this person. You rather have friends and best friends outside that you are even more vulnerable with than your spouse. Like, again, please pardon me. So many things are very, like, I don't understand them. I don't understand how two people be in a marriage and be having sex with each other and they can't communicate. They can't plan finances. But you're all seeing each other's private. What else is higher than this, please? It's more sacred than this. So it's funny to me. Honestly. I'm one person who believes, apart from like infidelity, what's the other one? Domestic violence, emotional abuse. Every other thing can be worked on. Every other thing can be worked on. Apart from, if you want to live for this, even these three things, some people say they can walk through it. For me, if anybody says I want to leave my marriage because of these three things, it's fine. I don't have a problem. I'm a Christian, again, don't get it wrong. But I would not be party to some kind of crap. Okay? But apart from these three things, you can work on anything. Be friends with your spouse. Talk to you. How can you be in a house you don't talk to each other? You talk to somebody outside more than the person in your house. If you're in Nigeria, start now. Even if you're not going to relocate. Even if you're not relocating, start now. You don't need to want to relocate before you start to have a friendship with your spouse. I'm one strong, independent woman. I've built my career both in Canada and Nigeria. But I have a lot of respect for my husband because we're friends and he also respects me a lot. So bad that if I'm not talking to my husband for like 1 hour or 2 hours, maybe he upset me. We're all learning and all that. Okay, it doesn't ever stop. That's my opinion. Learning doesn't ever stop. So I wish everybody well. I hope you can pick 1 or 2 lessons. Start from even one. Both here in Canada, both in Nigeria, whatever, any part of the world you are when you see this.